my name is Ian Millar. Over the last 40 years, I have been fortunate to have experienced the world of the horse in a very special way. I have ridden thousands of horses all over the world in every conceivable circumstance. For more than a decade, I have been blessed to be teamed with an extraordinary partner, a horse that has met and championed every challenge he has ever faced. They have been many, and they have often been extreme. His name is Big Ben, and this is the story of his phenomenal life and career. A glance at greatness.
(1994), the end of a Hall of Fame career for the mighty gelding. Big Ben retires from international show jumping at the top of his game, with a performance resume that spans more than a decade and ranks him unquestionably among the very best the sport has ever known. His career, his accomplishments, his character, his story. It is the stuff of legend. Big Ben first took up residency at the Millarbrook Farm in Perth, Ontario in 1983. It was from here, under the tutelage and in partnership with Ian Millar, that Ben's athletic prowess, extraordinary character, and unique qualities not commonly found in horses of his size were developed and refined, resulting in an athlete of international superstar status. From here, he embarked on an incredible worldwide campaign that carried Millar and the Maple Leaf to victory after victory in every corner of the globe. The obstacles encountered in 10+ years on the international Grand Prix circuit were heroic in size, both in and out of the tournament ring. A real champion, Big Ben could always dig a little deeper to conquer the challenge, whatever the obstacle. The result? A resume that will likely never be equaled, even by the very best of fiction writers. And with it, the respect, admiration, and adoration of literally millions around the world. Competitors, fans, media, sponsors. People from all walks of life have been touched by the accomplishments of this gentle giant. 1994, Big Ben's final competitive season. The decision is made by Ian Millar that the 18-year-old gelding should retire while he's still at the top of his game.
Big Ben should leave the sport a winner, and the trick was to pick the time. And I always said he'd tell me when, and I took him to California to compete in the winter of this year, 1994, and I took him to the land of the laid back, and he got laid back on me. He really enjoyed the sun and the California life, and he just wasn't the same focused, ready horse when he'd come to the competition. And again, that's not something you train in, that's a natural spark. And it's not his body is plus or minus really good. And it would have been a shame if the great athlete had been trapped in a body that couldn't do it anymore. But that's not the case. The body is sound, the mind is saying, I've done it. I've done enough, and I'd like to hang out in Perth for a while now. And that needed to be recognized. To ride the winds into him, to pull the winds out of him, I wouldn't want to do it. It'd be all wrong. He's always given me the winds. I don't want to take them.
September 1983. Ian Millar meets Dutch international rider and horse dealer Emile Hendricks for the first time in the international warm-up ring at the Spruce Meadows Masters. For those who believe in fate, this chance introduction and meeting would change Millar's life.
Heck, I was walking around in the warm-up area that September in 1983 and just happened to start chatting with Emile Hendricks, who was riding on the Dutch team. And he said, do you ever come to Europe to look at horses? And I said, well, occasionally. And he said, well, you know, our family is in the horse business as well as I'm a rider. And he said, if you come over and you have time, give me a call, here's my card. Well, that was a happenstance that I talked to Emil that day. And it was also a happenstance that I got done all my other business in Europe a day early. And I could have sat around Brussels and relaxed for a day and caught the plane home. I was certainly tired enough. But I picked up the phone and called Emil, and he said, you know, there's a horse. And he said, a lot of different opinions and viewpoints on this horse. You may hate him, you may like him, but I think he's worth a look. And that was Big Ben. And if you chart the circumstances that led up to me walking in the barn that day and seeing Big Ben, there's a lot of happenstance there. When I first saw the horse, in fact, we walked into the stable in Holland, and he was already had the saddle and bridle on, and he was tied up in the aisle waiting for us. And I remember very well looking at him, and he kind of turned his head, and there was a group of us there, but it was really like he looked at me, and I looked at him, and there definitely was an instant synergism, if you will. Communication was right there. We got along real well. It's just like when you meet somebody and you shake hands with them and you look them in the eye and you know darn well that you see a lot of things the same way and that there's the potential there to work very well together and be good friends. And that's exactly how I felt when I first saw Big Ben.
From the start, the chemistry was excellent. The deal concluded. Ian Millar paid $45,000 for the immense 7-year-old gelding, and so began the long, hard road to the top of the world of show jumping.
He's a tough horse to train. He was a very difficult horse to train in those days because he's got so much strength of character. And God gave horses their speed and their eyesight to solve their problems in nature. And most horses are not adversarial. This horse, as a gelding, was adversarial enough. And I've always trained him the way I tongue-in-cheek say my wife Lynn trains me. It's done so subtly that at the end of the day I think it's all my idea. And that's exactly how I trained Ben, is I presented all the options and made the one that I wanted the most attractive, and he naturally went to that option, and hence the training procedure. There was very, very little confrontation in the training of Big Ben. When he's 1,450 pounds of dancing dynamite, there's no point having a lot of confrontation. The one advantage I supposedly have in training Big Ben is a superior intellect, although I wonder about that sometimes. Training horses and developing a great horse is not unlike drilling for oil. If you don't drill that next 6 inches, you'll never know whether it was there. And uncovering and molding the greatness in a horse is not unlike that. If you don't take that next step, spend that next hour, do that next exercise, try that little different shoeing angle, whatever it takes. If you don't do that, you'll never know whether they really were great.
Their record is testament to the effort, the commitment, the pursuit of excellence, going that extra mile to achieve. Of the literally hundreds of victories that Big Ben jumped to around the world, there were a select few times when even Ian Millar found his brilliance beyond belief.
There's three that really stick in my mind. The first one would be the World Cup Finals in Tampa. And he was at the top of his game that week. He felt great physically, he was happy, he was comfortable with the climate, the surroundings, the whole deal, and he couldn't be beat that week. And in all humility, I say there was Big Ben who won it, winning all 3 legs, and then there was the rest of the pack fighting over second, third, fourth. He was 10 lengths ahead that week, and that's maybe as good as he's ever been. The next time that comes to mind is the de Maurier, second time he won that, and that turned into a pretty tough brawl. It was a power test, footing was a little tough, big wide jumps, position in a difficult manner, and that one came down a little bit to who wanted it the most, and Big Ben just fought harder than some of the others, and I was real proud of what came from inside of him that day to lead to that win. And the other time that comes to mind, and it's happened 2 or 3 times, in fact, at the Royal Winter Fair, where Big Ben had to jump the clean round to win the Nations Cup. Nationwide television, live. I tell you, that's pressure. And that crowd is sitting there. You can feel it in the air. They want this so badly. They want us to do it. They want us to deliver. And you walk in that ring knowing that you better deliver it or dig a hole in the ground. And that is pressure. And Big Ben would feel that from me, and he'd just try harder and fight like crazy to get it done. And it wasn't easy for him, and he delivered.
For the fans, sponsors, media, and other athletes in the sport, it seems that Ian Millar and Big Ben always delivered. This is especially true when it came to competing at Spruce Meadows. As a venue, Spruce Meadows has grown up, obtained international prominence, and positioned itself at the very top of international show jumping in a manner that parallels Big Ben's story. Through 11 tournament seasons at Spruce Meadows competing in the international ring, Big Ben has won more than $750,000, 2 de Maurier Limited internationals, numerous World Cup qualifiers, and has been a permanent fixture as the anchor for Team Canada in the Bank of Montreal Nations Cup. But perhaps his legend will live longest as the master of the Derby. Show jumping's most demanding test has allowed Big Ben to showcase his awesome ability and leave the competition in his dust a staggering 6 times.
The test of the derbies, of course, is the endurance factor, the length, the number of obstacles, and of course the natural obstacles. And this is where Big Ben shines, because with his power and his great big stride and his endurance, I can't say as I've ever really pulled up at the end of a derby and felt I had an overly tired or spent horse. He's just that kind of strong that he can do it, and he's so clever in his mind that he does not get tricked or trapped by the natural obstacles. And Big Ben has won quite a tidy sum of money out there. So derbies are, I only wish there were more of them. My friend Emil Hendricks said to me once when I was in Holland, he said, you know, as long as you have Big Ben, you won't have another one.
Sadly, the world may never have another one. The impact Big Ben has had on every aspect of the sport, not only in Canada, but around the world, has been extraordinary.
My impressions of Big Ben will be negotiating the tallest bank in the world, which is here at Spruce Meadows in the international ring, and being a dominant force, much like the legends of Eddie Macken and Boomerang, every time they step foot into a derby here. Big Ben owns the international ring at Spruce Meadows. Every time he goes into that ring, he's waiting, anticipating the victory gallop. He hears the fans, people love him here. And that horse, his ears go forward, his neck arches, and he just exudes a presence about wanting to be here and perform for his fans. There'll be a lot of great horses in the future, and there were a lot of great horses in the past, but there is nothing like Big Ben.
Clearly, he is the premier ambassador for sport in Canada, in my mind, internationally. I'm talking about Ian with, again, this wonderful horse. And I think that, we're going to lose a little bit of our international sport capability right across the spectrum of sports when he retires. You go back in the history of our relationship with Ian and Big Ben, it was Bill Mulholland's vision that he wanted to tie the bank to something of international excellence. And clearly Big Ben and Ian were rising to that plane back in 1986-87. Everything that we wanted out of the sponsorship in terms of a real perspective on Canadian international excellence is in that team.
Big Ben was a big jumper. He was able to jump the fences easy and fast, and Ian is a great jockey. I mean, they had a good partnership, and they were going for a long time. Ian beat me on many times, but it's a shame to see them go. But Ian won't give up that easy, I don't think.
It's very sad that he's retiring. He's got to that age when these things do happen. Good horses come to the end of the day, and you don't like to run them into the ground and let them keep going and become second raters. But I would say that they are, in my 25 years looking after our team, the British team, I would say that Big Ben and Ian have been one of the greatest combinations the world has ever seen. I should be sorry to see him go.
It's an emotional time for anyone who has experienced Big Ben during his incredible career. No one, not even Ian Millar, has had the relationship with Ben that Sandy Patterson has. Since 1987, she has been his constant companion, his groom, his caregiver, his best friend. Together, they have traveled the world, fought many battles, and cherished many victories, not all of which have come in the sporting arena.
I think it was fate. I was just in the right place at the right time. I started working for Ian because I really wanted the chance to travel a little bit and to go and see the famous horses in the world and the famous riders. You know, I'm from a small town area like this and never really been anywhere. And now I figure Ben's given me a chance to see it all and do it all. We went to Sweden, and that was my first time in Europe. I'd never been out of Canada before, and Ben went there and just kept winning everything, and he won the World Cup at the end of the week, and it all seemed so easy for him. I just thought that was the way things were. You went to a big horse show and you won. You know, that's what Ben did. That was what he was famous for. When you called on him, he went in and he did it, and he did it easy, and he just loved hearing the crowds cheer, and the louder they clapped and the louder they cheered, the higher he jumped. Coming back from the World Cup in Sweden, he got sick on the way home, and he took quite a few months to get over that. I'd say he wasn't probably up to par most of that summer. And then the next year, our surgeries, 2 colic surgeries, life-threatening situations where we weren't sure he was even going to survive, let alone ever come back and compete again. And he surprised everyone and came back bigger and stronger and better. It was something very, very hard to believe. He just, you know, he's so big and strong, and he's such a character that to see him belittled by something that you have no control over whatsoever was very rough on everyone. One of the things about Ben is that he has 2 different personalities. He has a show day personality and he has his everyday personality. On show days, he wants you to leave him alone. He doesn't want you to fuss over his mane and make sure that little piece is just right. He wants you to leave him alone so he can concentrate on his job. And then, you know, the day after he shows, or even the night after he shows, he's very relaxed, and he wants his head scratched, and he wants to play with his bit when you take the bridle off. And they're just 2 totally different horses. It's much more relaxed, much more of a people horse when he's not showing. When you walk in the barn in the morning, he definitely has to be the first horse that you look at, because he'll let you know. He'll bang on his stall door and dig a hole or whatever. And you go to do his water buckets, and it doesn't matter if you have 6 other horses to take care of this morning. He wants his back scratched right now, you know, and he's very demanding in that way. And I guess a little spoiled. He's always been a real game horse. You know, he likes to go out and jump higher and wider, and the higher you tested him, or the wider you tested him, or threw some little trick into him, he'd always say, "Ha-ha, you didn't get me this time, I've got this figured out," you know? I think that's the way he looks at the Derby. He looks at all those fences and he says to us, "I can do this. You haven't caught me here. It doesn't matter whether it's the Grob or the open water or the banks or the double Liverpools. I know it all and I can do it all." And I think he's just laughing at us when he canters around that course. That's his fun.
The final chapter begins. At 18 years of age, the mighty gelding is still, as always, in a league of his own. The decision is made. 1994 will be his final season, and a national retirement tour is undertaken. Its goal, to give people a chance to bid farewell to a genuine hero of sport. The Big Ben Retirement Tour is also designed to give back to the sport and to the community, with all proceeds going to the Canadian Equestrian Team and Canadian Therapeutic Riding. Response to the tour is phenomenal. At tournament after tournament, people turn out by the thousands to thank Big Ben for the wonderful story he has authored. For Ian Millar, it's all a bit overwhelming. For the last decade, he has been charged with a responsibility perhaps even bigger than he realized. Big Ben has been his friend, his teammate, his partner, both in sport and business. The realization of the magnitude of the relationship and its importance to a nation and to a sport is now confirmed.
Well, it makes me feel so proud to have been privileged and blessed to be associated with this horse. And it's quite an awesome responsibility, because I realize that in my care and custody and in my hands and my control when I ride him, I have a horse that belongs to every Canadian. And it's a big responsibility. Big Ben is a big money winner. He's won over $1.5 million. He's won over 40 Grand Prix. Both of those numbers are certainly North American records and would be competitive with any record in the world. Over the years, we probably had 4 or 5 offers to purchase the horse in excess of $1 million. And I said, well, the British don't sell the crown jewels, and France doesn't sell the Louvre, and so on and so forth, and Canada doesn't sell Big Ben. He is a Canadian, and he competes for Canada, and we are privileged and blessed to be involved with a horse like Big Ben and to own him, and it would be outrageous and inconceivable to ever think of selling him. When I think back on the horses that I've ridden over the years, and there's been quite a number, there's certainly been over 20 horses that I've ridden in Grand Prix competition. What is the difference between Big Ben and the rest? And I guess you'd have to say that if you rolled all the good qualities of all the rest of them into one horse, you'd have Big Ben. Ben, I've learned a lot from you over the years, and one thing that I've come to know is there's 2 things I should never leave home without: my MasterCard and you. And unfortunately, from now on, in 1995, I'll still have my MasterCard, and I'll have you at home. And I'll be thinking about you. And I hope you tell the other guys how to do it.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, our last entry, Big Ben.
This cavalcade of grace now stands. He speaks in silence. His story is legend. Where in this world can man find nobility without pride, friendship without envy, beauty without vanity? Here, where grace is laced with muscle, and strength by gentleness confined. He has served without servility. He has fought without enmity. There is nothing so powerful, nothing less violent, nothing so quick, nothing more patient. The hopes of a nation have been born on his back. Our success is his industry. We are his heirs. He, our inheritance.